This is a very big day for annoying people. Today's Tuesday. Two books just came out. One, Rose in Chains by Julie Soto. The other one is The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy by, I've been saying Bridget, but it's Brigitte Knightley. The thing about these books is that they were both previously Hermione fan fiction. They have both been reworked into their own original stories, and I am going to be reading both of them in this vlog. Rose in Chains, which is a rework of the auction I read this year. So I think I'm definitely going to remember more about the plot of Rose in Chains. For Rose in Chains, I am surprised that this is going to be a trilogy. A duology would probably be better for this. I just don't know if there's that much content to stretch it out between 3 books. I mean, Julie Soto could have added a lot to the story in this world. Just based on what I know from the fic, I'm surprised that it's going to be stretched out between 3 books. Anyway, since I'm splitting between both books, I don't think I'm going to be diving in too much to each book. I think I'm just gonna hit the main points. But yeah, let's get into this video. I've read the first 5 chapters. There are 2 kingdoms. There is Eversun and there's Beaumard. And our main character, Bryony, is a part of the Rosewood bloodline, and currently her kingdom is warring with Beaumard. Bryony has a brother named Rory, and there's a prophecy that says that the Chosen One will stop this war, so everyone thinks that the Chosen One is Rory, and he has been treated as such. They are also twins, so they're very close, but Bryony is always in Rory's shadow because he is supposed to be the one that is protected, but she still loves her brother. They are just not treated equally, and that's kind of their dynamic. The Rosewood bloodline is Eversun magic, and this is a protection magic. So they mainly focus on shields, borders, wards, and this magic is siphoned from the mind, whereas the Beaumardy siphon from their heart. They have heart magic. They usually rely on animals as a familiar to siphon their strength. The reason for the conflict, the Beaumardy have a leader named Mallow, and they have been going around telling people that the Eversun people are kind of just using mind control, even though that's not really what's happening. Their main power comes from the mind, but they're not controlling other people. I feel like this is so hard to explain. Mallow believes that the Beaumardy kind of should have full control of everyone to use their heart power to siphon where they see fit. They have previously always used animals for siphoning their magic, but now Mallow has convinced the people that they can and should be using other humans with or without their permission to siphon their magic. It is illegal to use another person while siphoning your heart magic. It's called boosting, and it's a no-no in this world. I hope that made sense. I really do. Anyways, present day, Mallow's men are now storming the castle in search for Bryony and anybody else that is of Eversun descent. And although she has been running around this castle trying to hide, she's been fighting back, they do catch her in the end. But she does have an encounter with Tovin. I'll get to the names in a second. Let me finish this. They do have an encounter, but he does not see her. She is using her powers to kind of hide herself in this castle for as long as she can to try and escape, but she still ends up being caught by one of Mallow's men. About the names, okay. Bryony, okay. I see what you did there, Julie Soto. I understand. But Tovin is like, oh, that's a choice. Like, that Tovin is a choice. Definitely something. I just read chapter 6, and I'm not going to keep bringing up the fic because I feel like that can get annoying really quick, but this is the first chapter where I remember it being very similar. Like, this chapter, what happens in it is pretty much the same. Bryony wakes up in a holding cell with a bunch of other women. They are all Eversun, and that's when they find out that there's going to be an auction. The auction is going to consist of Eversun men and women, and the Beaumardy are going to bid on them, and whoever, you know, bids the highest will get the person. That's how an auction works. They are going to be using the Eversun people to boost, like they are going to be using their heart magic on them. They're going to be using them as their own like personal supply for their own magic. The auction has happened, and there was a bidding war between Raven, this evil character, and Tovin. Initially, Raven won the bidding war, but Tovin ended up with Hermione. Oh! Initially, Raven won the bidding war, but something goes down behind the scenes and Bryony ends up with Tovin. Bryony is looking around the estate grounds for a place to escape. Tovin tells her that she will not be able to escape because she has this tattoo. All the people in the auction got a tattoo, and what the tattoo does is binds you to certain places. So in this case, she will not be able to step foot outside of his estate grounds without being electrocuted. She decides to take the chance anyway. She runs past the barrier and she is electrocuted. She has been out for a couple of days, and when she wakes up, she is met by Tobin's mother. They have a short, kind of pleasant conversation. That is where chapter 14 leaves. We also get a couple of flashbacks within those chapters of what they were like back in school. They're in Tovin's house, and Mallow has come to visit them to see how Bryony is doing. While she's there, she goes into Bryony's mind to try and get some more information about where her cousin Finola is. Now that Bryony knows that she can read her mind, Tovin allows her access to the library, and while she's in there, she starts to read more about shielding the mind so Veronica doesn't have access to her thoughts. We also learn more about Tovin's familiar. His familiar is a fox named Vesper, and we also know that Hermione oh my gosh. We also know that she's getting information through the journal, which is their news source. So she has been sneaking around reading the journal so she knows what's happening outside of this estate. Bryony and Tovin at this point have gone to Biltmore, and Hermione, oh my gosh! Bryony and Tovin go to Biltmore, and this is actually Bryony's old castle. They've turned it into a place that she doesn't really recognize. The Beaumont people have been using this castle, show off the people that they bought. They use it to drink and play games. It's just something completely different than when she lived there. The Beaumont men use heartstring magic, so the people that they bought, they use their magic to siphon them while they fight. And they just do this for like peacocking reasons. There is no benefit to this. Tovin doesn't want her to keep coming to these events because it's a lot to deal with, but she wants to get more information from the other girls that are there so she can try and figure out a way to get them out of the situation. Also, this castle being called Biltmore is making me chuckle a little bit because I'm picturing the actual Biltmore like in North Carolina, and I don't know if that was Julie Soto's intent, but I think it's kind of funny. Also, it fits the theme. Like, it looks, I mean, it's a castle, so it looks the part, but I don't know. It's kind of funny. Okay, I'm done with Rose and Chains, and I am just gonna give my review here. I thought I was going to make this a spoiler vlog, but I've decided to keep this spoiler free and just give you my overall thoughts of how the book was. First, to talk about the ending. I'm not going to tell you what happens in the end, but I was skeptical of how these books were going to be broken up, and I actually think where it left off made sense for this first book. I think the ending stops in a good point where the reader will be intrigued to read the second book. I was thinking about it last night of what I was going to rate this book, and I ended up being somewhere around a 3.75 and a 4. I think that my desire to give this book a 4 stars has more to do with what I know about the fic than it actually does this specific book. Since I know majority of the things that are going to happen, I can forgive the sins of this book a little bit more. And I also do have a really soft spot for this fic, so I think that's like kind of clouding my judgment. If I was being more lenient with my review, I would give it 4 stars, but if I want to be a little bit more critical, I would say it's more on the 3.75. To me, the magic system was a little wonky, but I also think it can be improved upon on the next 2 books, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. The first few hundred pages of any fantasy book is a lot to take in, but especially with the magic system, I found myself being like, okay, what's going on here? Who has what power? What's going on? I was not expecting this book to be so similar to the fic. I don't know why. I've never read the original fic before going into its reworked published version. I know that's a pretty common thing, like for Ali Hazelwood books. I know that some of it is previously fan fiction, but I never read that fan fiction version of the book. so it didn't affect my reading experience. I constantly found myself comparing it back to the fic, and I think it actually made this story have less of a punch because I kind of knew all the beats. It was like direct scene for scene, just with different characters, and I didn't expect that. It's also not a bad thing. I don't know what I expected the book to be, but it wasn't like that. I am so curious of what people's reviews of this book are going to be who didn't know it was fan fiction or didn't read the fan fiction before it was republished into this. It definitely did solidify that I'm not going to be rereading Manacle before Alchemize comes out. I was debating on whether or not I wanted to reread that fic as a refresher, but I think allowing time to separate what it was and what it is now will allow me to go into the story with a clean slate and just take it for what it is. I am now moving on to The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy. I did start this on Spotify last night and I'm 20% into the story so far. In the story, we follow Arian. She is a scientist and a healer, and Osric, who is an assassin. There is something wrong with Osric, and he knows that Arian specializes in what he needs to be treated, but she does not want to treat him because they are part of two different orders. And what I'm understanding is that the orders are kind of like the factions in Divergent. Every order has different morals as well, and that's why Arian does not want to treat him because he's a part of the assassin order and she does not want to mess with that. But they come to an agreement. Osric is offering her a lot of money for her research, and this money will fund something that she has been struggling to get funding for, but it's affecting a lot of people. So she is kind of having to suck it up for the greater good. I am 45% into this book. I'm at the top of chapter 10. I feel like in this point in the book, I know where the overall plot is going to go between this book and the second one. I'm just guessing so far, but if it goes in the direction that I think it's going, I think it makes sense for this book. I also think that this book is banter city. If you like banter between your two main characters, I think you would probably like this book. I am glad I picked this up as an audiobook because I don't think I would be enjoying it if I read this physically. I think that listening to it on audio is serving the book to me in a way that I can easily digest. I think it's allowing me to understand the back and forth between the two main characters. I think it's allowing me to understand the magical elements of this book. And I think that the comedic cadence of the writing is coming across more listening to it on audio. I think if I was reading this physically, I might be more annoyed at the writing style. It's very unique and I don't think it's going to be for everyone. I'm done with The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy, and I gave it 3 stars. I also know that I didn't do a great job of telling you what was happening in the story. I kind of just did like an overview of what the initial plot was. Sorry about that, but my thoughts on the book are that it was good. I just think that it's not gonna be for everyone. Not to put two queens against each other, but I think that Rose and Chains people will like more or have an easier time getting into because it hits the familiar beats of a standard romantasy. I just think the current climate of romantasy leans a lot more into the Rose and Chains side of it than they would the Irresistible Urge. The Irresistible Urge, the writing is really quirky, I guess, and unique, and I don't think that's gonna work for everyone. I enjoyed it enough. I definitely think the audiobook is the way to go if you want to read the story. I think the audiobook provides a more enjoyable reading experience. That's what I'll say. This is the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you've read any of these books, please give me your opinion below. I would love to chat about them. My Goodreads will be in the description, and I will see you guys in my next video.